All right. Well, welcome everybody who's watching out there in the big, scary world that we have these days. No,
Are you
we're going
saying that
to
just because it's Halloween Eve, Tony? Is that why the scary came from?
talk about. No, I actually think the world's scary. No, yeah, Halloween coming right around the corner. Um, so that's good. But what's also coming right around the corner is a new year. And now is the perfect time for all of those business owners, contractors that are, staring the winter in the face and wondering what is next season going to look like. So what we thought we'd do, and what I thought I would do, is have a conversation with Chris, who has many years of running different types of businesses, but he's built a great way to budget for your marketing. So welcome, Chris. I'm really looking forward to this conversation and showing off a few things you've built. So
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Well, I'm excited to show them off a little bit, and not really show them off, but just share them with people so that we can bring some. Hopefully, you get some value out of this, and you get some insights and ways to get informed on how to do some things tactically without necessarily always having to go through a long conversation with us.
yeah, no, it's perfect. Hopefully you'll see this on our on-demand page on our website, which I'll show you a little bit, and then our YouTube channel. This obviously is being recorded and put out there. So
yeah,
where I wanted to start with was just the budgeting process in general. Now I got a little graphic here, and but just annually, every time you go through a process to think, well, what are we going to spend our money on? Marketing is one of those things, but also just in general, I think it's good to have this for your business overall. I could walk through each of these steps, but maybe Chris, you could give us a little bit of overview of how you look at annual budgeting.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. So yeah, and budgeting is a great thing that you spend a bunch of time planning out your next year in a variety of different ways, looking at your dollars from a couple of different perspectives. And then 3 months in, you wind up pivoting and adjusting it a little bit. And I think it's really important to plan annually and forecast annually. But then you monitor and you look at things quarterly and even monthly with your finance team, and you make little tweaks to it. So it might not be the exact budget at the end of the year that you set off with, but if you can start at the beginning of the year and look at, what are the primary financial goals for the year? And we'll talk a little bit later about how we can translate that conversation down into the marketing channels and pretty much all the elements of your business and operations. But the main goals, and some of that, in order to do that, you need to put together some numbers. And you need to kind of get yourself, if you don't know your numbers, there's an old saying, if you don't know your numbers well, you probably don't know your business real well. And getting to know that and getting the detail and the clarity on that before you begin your budgeting is really, really important. If you start budgeting with flawed information, then you're going to have a flawed budget that's not going to be sustainable. So, garbage in, garbage out, all that. So, taking a look at what are the goals and priorities, and then getting the data so that you can draft the initial budget. And then if you have multiple departments involved in those things, in your expenses, if you have your production team, if you have your fixed assets like your machines, then you look at the finances and you go, okay, does this serve this purpose? Does the marketing team going to fulfill the sales team, which is going to fulfill the production team? And do all the numbers have what they need in order to hit those goals? And then once you have those communications, that dialogue in place and then you can put the numbers down, make it an operational budget that gets implemented, deployed, and monitored and adjusted. And that's where that whole tracking and feedback loop come into play. That has to happen internally as well. Getting that conversation between the departments, hey, marketing, you generated a whole bunch of leads, but sales didn't close any. All right, well, let's ask sales why. Or we got all these leads and we closed all these deals, but we didn't get the jobs completed on time, which caused a lag in our deliverables and in our forecast for our revenue. So, you get the opportunity, if you manage your business with the numbers according to your budget. There was something somebody told me a long time ago. If you manage your business yearly, you might have a bad year. You probably won't have a bad decade. If you manage your budget monthly, you might have a bad month, but you won't have a bad year. All the way down to the line. So if you manage your business daily, you might have a bad day, but it probably won't turn into a bad week because you're going to catch it, spot it, and deal with it. And running it right along those lines, I think is a great way to go.
Yeah. We're basically talking about a mind shift in how you think about running your business. Now, obviously, we're a marketing agency, and so we might be the entire marketing team or department for some businesses.
Yeah.
Other businesses, your teams might just serve pieces of that. But what you're really saying to me is budgeting is kind of a way to set expectations. Is that fair to say on how well a department might perform?
Yeah. At the end of the day, the dollars are they're the key factor, right? For a business, right? The more of them you collect, you don't collect enough of them, you go out of business. You collect a lot of them, you take a vacation. But those things, I mean, yeah. So tying everything directly to revenue and knowing your COGS and your expenses, your fixed expenses, semi-fixed expenses. And I know I'm not talking about all these things purely through the marketing lens, but the same principles apply to each one of these departments. So your marketing department would get this same level of inspection. I love your graphic here, Tony. It's pretty much doesn't get any more clear than that either. Like if you don't create a budget and you don't have a plan, you don't have a forecast and projections, then every day, all day, you're just running fire drills and, reacting. But when you have a budget, you have a strategy. And it's the same thing with digital marketing. We can go in and respond to when a site breaks, or we can have a strategy to grow the site, grow the channels, and improve things.
So it's kind of like you also look at it as I'm putting this much money in, because you said something that's really important. And this is part of the mind shift, I think, when you go through the budget process, because you tend to budget what a business can afford or stretch to afford. And we'll talk about this a little bit in marketing, but it's like this in, I think, every department. You have people that you might want to hire. You have, more business that you need to generate. You have departments that are functioning at some level. And as a business owner, you're really investing in hopefully the improvement or the growth or the, streamlining of a department for one reason or another strategically. Marketing always gets an eye put on it, a focus on it, because, part of the 3 pillars of marketing are building a lead pipeline and lead flow consistently, having sales speed to lead and good sales follow-up automation and systems. And then the flywheel, it's like, okay, when you do good work, tell everybody about it with reviews, testimonials, case studies, whatever fits your business, but definitely, and also maybe PR, press releases and things. So when you're investing in growth or in marketing, you're looking at how well that department feeds your business, because that's probably what it's for.
Yeah.
Do you think, Fannit has a pretty good track record of lifetime value and clients? I think it's almost 4 years, which I remember one time you told me the average or something. It was
46 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which the average marketing contract relationship with agencies right now, and I just came back from a peer group where we were talking about that, is 8 months. And if you get to 18 months, you're considered, in best practice range. So
and Fannit is
47 or 46 or 47 months, depending on whether we round up or down from the weeks. So yeah, it's pretty strong. And our retention there is great. But real quick, I wanted to touch on your budget thing. There was a thought that came to mind. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. One of the things when we're creating a budget as initial operators and entrepreneurs, we typically look at, like, somebody says, okay, well, here's a new machine or a new device that we need to buy. It's going to cost $30,000, right? And we go, oh, okay, well, that's a lot of money. Like, or maybe it's not for your machines, depending on the business that you're in. But you go, okay, well, 30 grand. All I need though are 15 jobs, and it'll pay for itself, right? So if I get 15 jobs, I'm good. Where the budget breakdown happens and the lack of communication impacts this is, how are you going to get those 15 jobs? You can talk about, like, all I need is this much. All I need is 15 jobs. I'll make enough money to get it. And that's not really including your COGS, your expenses, your fixed and semi-fixed overhead, but leave that aside. Just from the dollars, like, how are you going to get those 15 jobs? And that is where your digital marketing department or your marketing team should come into play and say, great, here's the channels that are performing and what percentage. This is what it takes to get a job. This is our customer acquisition cost, or CAC. So if we spend this much and all other things remain equal, we're going to get this number of jobs. Now you can see that. But if you leap right into, like, yeah, 30 grand, great. All I need are 15 jobs. Let me write a check. You're setting yourself up for, potential errors and frustration, because nobody knows how you're getting those 15 jobs until you actually talk through it.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because more and more conversations I'm having with business owners, this knowledge used to be real hidden. Like, it was, oh, I'm going to hire a marketing agency. I'm not going to tell them anything and see what kind of services they recommend and what budget they recommend.
Yeah.
And now we have this relationship where, they're a vendor. I pay them. They should just do what I say. And moving from that place, not having a budget, I just think I can spend this much, to a place where business owners are now more open to sharing details, especially as they get to be, well, let's say the top performers know to do this. Why? Because they know that they're investing in a marketing agency relationship that brings certain things to the table. So when they're making that investment, they also want to get a return on that investment, and should be getting a return on that investment. But I wonder, with some business owners, they think it's kind of like a slot machine. And we've talked about this before. It's like, oh, well, I gave you money,
right.
Shouldn't you return money? Isn't just, you say it works, but what they really don't understand is that the best relationships are ones, just like with employees, with any contractor, you have to have the conversation around the details that really make sure we're all on the same page about what we're trying to do together, and work through challenges, celebrate successes as you go along. We are, as agencies, humans that have experience, that run this tech and understand how this tech works, but we're also, it's still not up to AI, right?
Right.
So what I'd like to do, Chris, is kind of talk a little bit about the process of the budget. But before we do, I want to show this graphic that, now this is gathered over 20 years of running businesses and spending money on marketing. And these are just guidelines. And so I want to talk through a few of these things, and then we'll take people through an actual budgeting exercise with your with the budgeting calculator that you've built, which I think is great. The way to look at this, there's a lot of information on here. What I just want to say is these are guidelines. Every business is different and chooses different things, but this kind of gives you an idea of maybe expectation. If you look along the bottom, there's a list of marketing, digital marketing activities that are done. And across, from left to right, is early stage businesses spend a larger percentage of their revenue on larger businesses. So if you have a $500,000 a year business, roughly about 15% of that is spent on marketing. The things that you're having done with that 15% investment are different, or as you move from left to right, change, and they don't really change. They layer on top of each other. So, for example, when you're a $500,000 a year business, as a business owner, your brain is almost solely focused on getting more leads.
Right.
As you move up the chain, you get more sophisticated in what you're able and need to do with your marketing team. And so the percentage drops, but the dollar figure, the actual dollar amount goes up, which when you're a smaller business, that's kind of hard to get your head around sometimes. Maybe talk to me about your impression the first time you saw this graph, and maybe what value it has.
Yeah, I think it's a great illustration of kind of the fundamental differences between profit or scale, growth or scaling mode versus profit mode. And there's a lot of different labels in the world about like those, but basically a business is running in one of those two areas. And in the scaling or growth mode, yeah, exactly what you said. Like, you don't have as many dollars coming in, but there is a minimum viable spend necessary to get leads and acquire jobs, right? So it's usually a little bit higher of a percentage that you invest into your marketing in the initial parts. As time goes by and your revenue grows, now you can pull back on some channels, especially the ones with the higher acquisition cost, right? You can pull back. There's a place for all of them in an omnipresent strategy, but you can kind of shift the channel allocations and how much you spend per channel. And that allows you to then expand your profit margins through controlling your costs, right? So, in the beginning, it's just, we spend what we got to spend to get a job, and because we need dollars and we need to keep our teams working and et cetera. But as you get to that point where you're the 3 to 5 million in revenue, or, more than that, then you start thinking, okay, well, having 15% of my budget go into marketing doesn't seem necessary. It's like overkill. And it is. At $20 million, depending on if all your goals and production abilities are the same, then it is overkill. So that's when you start pulling back on that, and you start shifting your channel allocations and reducing the total percentage. And that re-expands your net profit margins by suppressing those costs.
Yeah. A good analogy I had that I heard one time is, how when you're sitting on the tarmac and you're sitting in a big plane, and the pilot's like, all right, we're second in line, but then you kind of feel when they hit the gas and they just put the throttle all the way down. Well, before and that plane just starts, it's slowly moving. Well, if you were to look at the engine, the fuel is just dumping into the engines like crazy. But the plane's so big, it's just kind of slowly moving. So if you were to look at this is the trajectory. And when you then start to, just get off the ground, there's still a ton of fuel being pumped into that and a ton of thrust. But then you notice when they get up to cruising altitude, it feels like they slow down.
Mm-hmm.
You ever felt that, where you're just like, oh, did we just slow down? Well, what that really is where that plane is hitting its cruising altitude, and it's the most efficient with its fuel and lift and everything. That's why it's cruising. Well, businesses are a lot like that. So when you're smaller and just trying to get off the ground, 15%, let's say, of your fuel is being dumped into getting off the ground, and you have to figure out how to get to a point where you're more efficient. And being more efficient means you understand things like cost per acquisition, cost per lead, average job size, average sales conversion rate of different marketing channels, whether it's search or paid or referral or those other things. And when you get to a certain place, you can be more efficient because you can see all of that. And that just takes time and effort and expertise to build your business that way. Now, not everybody wants to build their business and go from 500,000 to $1 million or $1 million to 3 million. It's a lot of work. You got to have a good team with you. And part of that team is your marketing team. So as we sit there and think about this, I wanted to just list this on here, but then I don't want to dive into each of these. I want to kind of have you walk me through. I'll show this and I'll use your calculator. I actually used it on a live client, or client prospect. So this will be interesting. And I have some questions for you. So I'm also going to put you on the hot seat.
Awesome. Yeah, I love those.
We'll come back to these. So let me just get out of here and all my tabs here. So what everybody should know is if they go to our website, there's a few different places where we thought we would put out there some of the challenges we see over and over again from clients. And they're kind of listed here. How do we define sales and marketing goals? That's a question we like. How do you do that? Where do we even start?
Right.
If we're a smaller business, which marketing sales KPIs should we track? The easy ones are, how much do we spend and how much do we make? Okay. You're at the starting gate.
Right.
It gets a little bit more sophisticated as you go. But if we're trying to build our business, and one of the things we always run into is this belief that marketing agencies are trying to steal your money, and oh, you didn't do so well here, or you didn't do so well there, and it always boils down to how much should we really be spending, and on what,
right,
and why? Those are all the questions. So having this page, you can go to this page under Learn and how to create a marketing budget. And you'll notice that list is there. I just pulled it right there. You'll notice the trends is right there on that page. But what we want to get into is something that you created, Chris. And what I want you to do is kind of walk me through these sections, and then I'll fill out or I'll show you what I filled out, and we can talk through the scenario as we go.
Perfect. Yeah. So when most businesses, like, one of the biggest things I hear when I meet a new business or I'm having a conversation, they're like, what should I spend on digital marketing or what should I spend on SEO? And the question has been for decades, well, it depends. Right. And it was like the F word of the internet. It was the biggest frustration that businesses had, because they don't want to hear it depends. They just want to know, can I afford it? Can I not? How much are we talking? I don't know. And they were frustrated because we had the answers and we weren't giving them up easily. So the whole point behind this was just to inform and empower businesses to get a sense of these things and just start getting exposed to them. So in the top part here, this is really just about like assessing where you're at right now, right? And getting some foundational things. So your annual revenue. Well, if you've been in business for more than a year, you have that number, right?
So these are numbers I entered. So when you look at this, you see annual revenue 3.7 million.
Perfect. So then, and that tier to the next is kind of like, are you in growth mode or profit mode? Now, you can operate in profit mode at less than 3 million. You can operate in growth mode at more than 3 million. It's really just a mindset and where you're at in the business life cycle, right? So some businesses, like if you're a really high ticket and dollars, like if you're a car dealership selling new Chevys, $3 million, that's a bad quarter, right? In revenue. So, you could still operate in profit mode here. In this case, let's go ahead and just keep it in growth mode. So you're at 3.7. Now, another thing that actually, let's go. All right. So, Tony, you have your average job size is 350,000.
Yeah. So this is a home builder remodeler.
Okay.
And they've had jobs from 600,000 to like an ADU unit to 95,000 for a small remodel kitchen, but their average is 350.
Okay. So yeah, then they're probably doing about 11-ish jobs a year. So in that growth goal year over year, is that saying that says you want to grow by 170%?
So they want to grow to 10 million in a
Okay.
year.
All
So
right.
I just had GPT do some math for me, and it said like 170.3% or something.
Okay. And are there competitors in their area?
There's more. They have three main competitors.
Okay. So a couple things to note. Just like there's always the connection between time and money, right? Like
Yeah.
how fast do you want something? You're probably going to pay more to have it today.
Yeah.
Probably pay less if you want it in a year, right?
Mhm.
Buying airplane tickets. So, and so that growth goal, that's going to dramatically increase or decrease the percentage that you should allocate towards spend. And the same thing for competitors. If there's a whole bunch of people, you have a really saturated market, the more competitors you have, the more you'll need to invest in order to outbid them, because it's usually a bidding war, right? At some level.
Yeah.
So to get out them now, just for example, because this number is well, at 170% growth year over year with three competitors in the area, that says that you should be investing about 24.5% of your revenue
Yeah.
in digital marketing, because 170 is a pretty big jump in one
That's
year.
right. That's right.
So I would think about this like, is that the goal in 1 year, or is that like a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan?
So that's the goal in 1 year. And this is where I was going to ask you some questions, because I can bring in these numbers, but as I look at it and say, really what that number, that 75,542 is, it's what does it take to close that gap from where you are to where where you want to go in that short amount of time.
Right. And I would say that this is like that kind of percentage is a bit of an outlier, but it's a good example. Let's run with it.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of the businesses are going to like necessarily be in that same boat, but in this case, if you scroll down a little bit, actually, it kind of breaks that down for you. So
Yeah.
to get to your 300, to get
Oh.
to your 370,000 or your 3.7 million rather, with an average 350 ticket, then you need 11 jobs. Now, one thing
No,
that's
you need 300.7
to get to where you're at. Yep, to continue exactly flat.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And one thing that's worth noting is making sure that you're paying attention to your lead to quote rate and your quote to close rate. And those are usually pretty consistent stages in most home service sector sales funnels, right? Like there's contact, do you get a quote or an estimate or, whatever that is. And then from that, when you get that quote, then how many of them do you close and you sign up and you actually do the work? So in this case, those are two numbers that I like to put in there early. If you have a close rate or a lead rate, so if somebody goes to your website, how often do they request a quote and get that quote performed? 65% would be a very, very, very high number.
So are you talking just traffic, or if someone calls or fills out a form?
Convert. Well, this is actually meant for lead to quote. So, but you could operate it under either scenario. You just need to do it consistently. Like pick a model and stick with it.
So if we said, look, what we're talking about is someone who calls in or fills out a form.
Okay.
And so these are just rough numbers. He didn't pull them out of his CRM.
Right.
But let's say half are there, but this one he was pretty adamant that when he sends quotes and estimates out, in fact, he was like, well, the reason I get such a high close rate is because I don't pressure, and I have a great designer.
Sure.
And she helps close based on the interaction she has with it. So they kind of team sell.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yep. And so, once you know those two numbers, that close rate, then that kind of informs the center box there, which is your growth target. So if you want to get to that, goal, then you need to, and you want 170% growth, right? Then you need to do, instead of 11 jobs, you need to do 29 jobs at all other things being equal. So that also assumes that your $350,000 average ticket is going to stay exactly there
Yeah.
and not go down with or up, right? So
It's
that
never
could have,
perfection that way, right?
yeah, that could be a modifier. But if it stayed flat and all other things being equal, you need 29 jobs. And based on your close rate from quotes to close, that means you need to issue 38 quotes, which means that you need 76 people to call and be a hand raiser or fill out a form or call in saying, hey, you know, I need this and I'm considering you for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the more this goes down, the more so this is where it comes back to closing the sales loop. Whether it's Fannit or any other agency, if you're not communicating back to them what sales is doing with the interactions they're getting, you're flying blind. Your marketing team is flying blind.
That's
and
right.
Just saying, yeah, those leads are crap, or yeah, that's not working, is not good enough.
No, not anymore. And
Yeah.
you know, your point earlier about like a lot of businesses treat their relationship with their agency like a vending machine. I put money in, give me the leads, right? But it's more of a growth partnership, and it has to be in modern times. Like it has to be a growth partnership, because we can execute things a lot more effectively and efficiently without wasted ad spend if we have information. And we gave you 5 leads. Well, I didn't close them. Okay, tell us why. Was it a message to market match? Was it an audience match? You know, or is it a sales problem? Like, but we don't know those things until we have those conversations. And when we engage with somebody, what I expect from all of our team and our clients is to approach it with that partnership mentality where we're accountable to each other. The business owner needs to come to us and say, hey, these are the things that I'm paying for, what got done, what didn't get done, you know, what are the results we're seeing?
Yeah.
Great. And then we have to say, by the way, Mr. Business Owner, we got these things. What are the things that you're seeing? Inform me so that I can actually optimize this. And that's where we really see success. It's not just a click and leave it alone anymore. There has to be constant optimization and dialogue.
Yeah. Okay, so now how does this translate into what kind of budget? And here's the dilemma I have. And this is a real dilemma. And businesses who are owners who are looking at this that are contractors should know that we have these internal conversations. If I go back to him and say, look, you need to be spending $75,000 a month. Now, I happen to know that he let go 2 people. He also has 1 person internally that he's keeping, and he's going the agency route. He tried to go internal, and the struggle he's having is he's the business owner. He's not a marketing executive. And so there's room in the budget for, he needs leadership, and he confirmed this. He needs leadership. He also needs a team to execute. And the third is he needs to have the data.
Mm-hmm.
And the process for all of that. So I think we're a good match for it, but that's a lot of money to go.
A lot of money. Yeah, that's 900,000 a year roughly. Right?
Yeah. But if you were making 10 million, what is that? That's less than 1%.
So I think at 170%, the way you have it in there, 170% is closer to what, like 6.4, 6.3? Is that right? At 170%, 3.7 million at 170%.
Well, maybe I asked the wrong question to GPT.
Could be. Yeah.
I'll tune it up.
Yeah, because if it was, and that sounds right, if it was 10 million and you were at 900,000, then you're at 9% of revenue, which is, we know is low, because we could see that in the calculator budget there. So, but if you did go back and you said, hey, it's 900,000, but you're going to get 10 million at 9% of revenue, just sign, just grab the paper and go, right?
Yeah.
Like if you can get it from 3 million to 10 million for that, you're golden. So, and again, the one thing that I would say with,
But right now, so here's the question. Yes, you're totally right. But here's the question. They're not there now. And so this is 24.5% of that.
mhm.
And the what I'm hearing you say is, okay, great, but that's an extremely aggressive goal.
Extremely.
And so we're going to need the budget to make that happen.
Yeah.
So now,
Time and money.
yeah. So now, let's talk about this last part of the budget calculator. Walk me through this, and just walk me through this.
Yeah. So what I refer to this as like channel allocation. In digital marketing, like it's kind of like, well, I got a marketing team. What is marketing? I don't know. They market. Okay, I got a digital marketing team. What do? I don't know. They do digital marketing stuff. But there's a lot to it, right? SEO in and of itself is a really big discipline with a lot of subsets. So if we were to take these and look at them each as a sub-department of the marketing department, right? Then which ones do we put the money into? And how do we come up with that? Now, and again, I just want to be clear, like this might not apply exactly to your business. This is a guideline built on benchmarks and best practices that I've seen over the sector. Certain niches are going to be a little bit higher, certain niches are going to be a little bit lower. So just, it's an invitation, not a subpoena. Right? I guess maybe I revealed something there with that analogy, but
yeah, the fact that you know that, Chris, is there a history you want to tell us about? No,
definitely not. But what we do want to do is we want to think about when you're having a conversation with your growth partner or your digital marketing agency. It's really easy for those agencies to say, well, here's the total dollar amount. Well, what does that get me? Well, it gets you digital marketing. That doesn't inform you and empower you to make educated decisions as you move forward. And that's what we want. I want the curtain pulled back on that, and you just to know what's going on. And then we don't have to have all those offensive, defensive conversations, right? When you just know. So what this does is it says, okay, based on growth mode, and again, so higher percentages are going to be allocated in growth mode to things like PPC as opposed to SEO, right? Because you need more of those leads up front. So in growth mode, this is saying as an average, you want to spend like 29 to 30% of your digital marketing budget of that 70-some thousand on PPC, and about 16% on paid social, about 19% on SEO, and down through it. Now, again, every business is different. And, Tony, you and I have had a lot of conversations about how I like custom engineering a strategy for a business because it allows me to take into account exactly where that business is.
Yeah.
If you're talking to this guy, and I don't know this business, I didn't have any exposure to him, but let's just use this as an example. Let's just say this guy has 1,000 5-star reviews. He's got 1,000 5-star reviews. He does not need reputation management from us. He's got that part figured out.
Yeah.
So the way to deal with this then in a form of business, just let's unselect it. Now you'll notice that when you unselected it or you reselect it, you'll see all those percentages in the middle adjust, and they'll automatically correct and rebalance because your total budget doesn't change. It just means how you allocate that total budget across the channels does change. So this informs that. Now, some people might say, some businesses might say, listen, I've been doing PPC for a few years, and the sweet spot for me is 33% of my budget. That always wins. Well, if you go up to PPC and you just change that to 33, now, no matter what else you do, Tony, I don't know what else you're going to do for digital marketing, but no matter what else you do, that does not change. Then you just go ahead and lock that channel. So now if, let's just say they get a whole bunch of bad reviews and they're like, oops, we need reputation management. Well, when we go back and we re-enable that, then all the other percentages will adjust to the channel allocations. But that 33% that, we wrote that, we etched that one in stone, that one's not moving. That stays locked in place. So what this enables you to do is just have really clear transparency and have informed thought processes on how you're going to allocate your budget to these different deliverables. That allows you to say, okay, and this is something that you should be talking to your agency or your growth partner about, whether it be us or anybody. If I have PPC and paid social and SEO running, how many leads am I getting per channel, and what's my cost of acquisition by those channels? And then you can say, well, gosh, PPC, we're getting a new job for $5,000, right? And at this ticket, that's pretty reasonable. But with SEO, it's costing us $3,000. Well, let's hammer down on SEO, right?
Yeah.
But because now you're making an informed decision based on math, facts over, feelings. A lot of times I get in there and I talk to a business and they're like, yeah, I think social ads are the way to go. Oh, okay. Well, what are we basing that on? Oh, it just seems like sales tells me that they really like those conversations. That's not a good reason.
Yeah.
But the numbers are a good reason. And so now you know how to split that investment, and you can usually call a lot of agencies. Ours, we operate this way. Not all do, but a good number of them will say, like, 3 months in, or 6 months down the road, we might look at this and go, man, the website and design and support, the site is flawless. It doesn't need anything right now. I would rather put that money into paid social ads or some other channel. Great, let's do that. And now you can see how those allocations work, and that will inform your acquisition costs and your efficiencies by channel.
What's the difference between SEO and local SEO on this?
Yeah, that's a great question. The two are kind of different plays. There's some fundamental similarities, right? Like they're both search engine optimization, but local SEO is really leaning towards a local service business that's going to utilize Google Map Pack, or the 3-pack it's called. Use the Google business profile to drive some of that traffic to your site. Straight SEO is more about keyword optimization on a national scale.
So if you were a more local company, you might say, well, this might be 5%, and we want this to jump up to 20%.
Sure.
Oops.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, if any of those other channels, you can lock them, and that will keep some of the other ones, because you'll see it. Yeah. You see all those numbers just shifting along with it.
Yeah. So I don't know if I could just enter 20.
You can enter 2, actually. The way I think that one does, you have to go in and do it the hard way on that one. I need to fix that.
Yeah.
It's
I get it.
Perfect.
But I think people get the gist.
Yeah. And again, it's really just about pull back the curtain, and instead of having to have an agency, go to 9 agencies and try to get somebody just to tell you what the friggin' budget needs to be, like, just how much is this going to cost me? Yeah. Well, now you can kind of see it. And what I've found for us, and this is something I'm starting to talk to our clients about, is building something like this for them to inform their customers. Because again, that frustration of the internet and people just wanting the information that I have, and conventional or traditional models are like, yeah, sure, schedule a discovery call, and I'll tell you everything that you want to know. And I tell you nothing that you want to know. I ask you a bunch of questions to figure out how to sell you.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is get into a growth partnership with somebody where we can grow together. Like, obviously we have a service that's valuable that we want to use and leverage for our clients and help them grow. And if they're successful, then we both win. If it fails, we both lose.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is great stuff, because now you're starting to talk about clients and what we track and how we inform what's going on with each of our efforts and their investment in all of those. This is amazing stuff, Chris. This is a way to put handles on the different pieces of the conversation that a client wants to pull and push on.
Yeah.
And we can absolutely have those conversations with them. So this is good stuff.
Yeah. And I would encourage anybody thinking about reaching out to us to go visit this and play with it and, explore some of these numbers. And one thing that I've noticed is that when that happens, people come to the call like, much more informed. And now we can talk about actually moving the needle instead of doing the dance.
Right. Go scan this and create your own marketing budget. Mess around with it. Be more informed before you talk to other agencies or talk to Fannit. Certainly is up for, free use. So we just put it out there. You don't have to sign up for it or anything. Again, just go to learn how to create your marketing budget. And that QR code takes you right here. There's a little video of me kind of talking about how important it is. But the real goods are down below here in this calculator. I think it's extremely valuable. And it forces you to think through what your, different elements of what you might want to invest in and how you might want to grow your business and how you're thinking about it. I think it's just great stuff, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony. The team and I did put a lot of effort into it and making a tool that's valuable. Listen, and most of the people watching this, like these type of contractors, they're the people we love talking to. They're the love people. That's who we want to help grow and cultivate and see, through to success. So even if we're not on the radar, if it's not us, if you're trying to do this internally, you're trying to look at another agency, you're trying to piecemeal it, whatever the situation in your business is, take advantage of it and just use it. That's the point of us building it, is giving you a tool to use to empower you to drive your business to the next level.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I appreciate your time, Chris, and we'll talk to you on the next one.
Thanks, Tony. Sounds great. Look forward to it.